in community conversations in the coming days. We are centering community engagement and equity and have worked to ensure that our meetings are available and accessible in all the languages for the populations that we serve. To that end, today's meeting is closed caption enabled. To turn on captions, click the three dots at the far right bottom of your screen labeled More and select Captions. From there, you can also select your preferred language if other than English. I'm also very pleased to announce that interpretation services are being offered for today's session, thanks to Mark Gutierrez and Lydia Rivera, who are joining us this afternoon. And with that, I'm going to pause and let Mark give some instructions on interpretation.
Thank you, Shannon. Muy buenas tardes a todos que nos acompañan. Deseamos dejarles saber que se ofrecen servicios de interpretación para la sesión de hoy. Así que para escuchar el programa en español, seleccione por favor el icono del globo en la parte inferior de su pantalla que dice Interpretation o interpretación. De ahí seleccione su idioma Spanish o español y podrá escuchar el programa enteramente en español. And please note, for those attending in English, we do have interpretation services offered for today's session. To listen to any comments or questions given in Spanish, please select the globe icon at the bottom of your screen that says Interpretation and select your language, English, and you will then be able to hear a live rendering of that comment into English. Thank you, Shannon. Back to you.
Thanks so much, Mark. So with that, I want to note that while participants are muted for today's session, you are more than welcome to ask any questions or offer any comments that you may have in the chat or the Q&A in either Spanish or English, and we'll work to get them answered. Finally, before I turn over today's session to my colleague, Brian Nestriato, Cradle-to-Career would like to acknowledge the tragedies that have occurred in the span of just a few short days in Monterey Park and in Half Moon Bay, impacting predominantly Asian American communities. Our hearts are with our fellow Californians devastated by these events and the lives lost to violence. And so I'd like to take a moment to pause to acknowledge that and give us a little bit of space. Thank you. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ryan to start today's community conversation. Ryan, take it away.
Thank you so much, Shannon. I appreciate that. And I want to welcome everybody here today to this event. I'm looking forward to co-hosting with Shannon and sort of walking us through the content that we have to share today, and also engaging you in conversation. I know that some of us have been to these before. We've also got some new folks also. And so I wanted to start by grounding us in our purpose here today. And the way I'll do that is I'll talk a little bit about who we are and what the Office of Cradle-to-Career Data is. And I'll also share a little bit about what the community conversation events, these events are for. So the Office of Cradle-to-Career Data is building an inclusive data system, and the purpose of this data system is to store and share useful information about early childhood experiences in education for our young folks in California, K-12 education, secondary, high school education, and then also college and careers. And we aspire to make this the most inclusive data system in the country. And one of the ways that we're doing that is to have community engagement be a part of everything that we do. So we'll be focusing on the community engagement part today. These meetings here that we're all at together are called community conversation events. So when we say community conversations, you'll know that it refers to these meetings that we have regularly, and also that the bigger picture here is that it's one of many ways that we have built into our routine opportunities to hear from you, our community. We like to have, we hold a number of different events. This community conversation event is less formal than the others by design, because we wanted to have space that feels safe to have some conversations about how we use data and the way we see ourselves using data in the future. So all of that to say, we are the Office of Cradle-to-Career Data. You are our community, and this here together is our conversation together called the Community Conversations. Okay, with that, I want to do a very brief activity here where Shannon is going to throw some music on, and just for a few seconds to help us get acquainted with each other, I'd like for you to, if you're comfortable doing so, entering your name in the chat, where you're from, where you're calling in from today, and if this is your first community conversation event or your second, or you've been to other ones. And that helps us get a sense of who's here with us today so that we can tailor the content for you and make this comfortable and conversational. So everybody have their typing fingers ready. Shannon, do we have our music queued up? Okay, let's go ahead and start the music. And I already see Janine has entered. Amy, hi, welcome. This is great. Matthew, welcome. All right, this is awesome. Yeah, I always love to, please keep it coming. While I sort of, everybody can take all of this in. I always love when we have so many that I can't actually read all of them, but I'm gonna try and pick some of them here. This is really exciting. Carol is here from Long Beach. Hi, Carol. Julia Bloom-Weltman from Gates Foundation. Hi, Shannon Hossinger. Hello. Oh, I should also say, again, please keep them coming, but while they're coming, our executive director, Mary Ann Bates, is also here today. Hi, Mary Ann. Janine Cooper, City of Sacramento, first event. Welcome to the first event. Thank you so much for coming. Okay. Please, if you have not entered your name and you want to, I'm going to move on to the next slide, but please keep them coming. And I think this is just kind of a nice way for us to say hi to each other. And we hope that as you keep on coming to these, that we begin to see people that you recognize at least by name, and hope that this can be an opportunity for y'all not only to connect with us, but also with each other. All right. Oh, David says, I like the music idea. Well, thank you, David. That's I can't take the credit. Shannon picked it and arranged for that. So I'm glad that's working. Okay. So next slide, please, Shannon. I think this is your part.
Yeah. No, thank you, Ryan. So we've got an action-packed agenda for you today, and some would say an action-packed year ahead. If you've been following the C2C planning process, you'll know we've got a robust 5-year timeline mapping the work needed to build the data system. So we wanted to use today's session to preview what's coming in 2023, as well as highlight Cradle-to-Career's key priorities and projects, and how you might be able to help with the work. We've heard from you that you'd like regular updates about what we've been doing here, so we'll dive into today providing updates on the data system, as well as highlighting new resources. Then we'll spotlight our upcoming programmatic work, which includes information on our user-centered design and data dashboards, the Cradle-to-Career student experience audit, efforts to support college planning, and the C2C website revamp and brand launch. So first up, we've been busy at C2C since our last community conversation, creating new resources and information about Cradle-to-Career data system to read and share. During our last community conversation, we came together to develop clear and shared expectations, as well as boundaries with one another as we engage in this work through the development of C2C's community guidelines. Community engagement and transparency are key components of our work, in creating community guidelines was an important first step towards building the foundation for positive collaboration. Our guidelines have been finalized and we're being implemented in all meetings going forward, as you may know once you registered for today's event. We thank you for your feedback, and we look forward to working with you this coming year. We've also taken deep dives into the user-centered design process, which Ryan will be speaking more to shortly, and have made an infographic that we used in a previous community conversation about the user-centered design process publicly available. And finally, Ryan, along with our colleagues at WestEd, have been working to simplify information about the data points that will be used in the de-identified linked C2C analytical data set, which is the foundation for the system's data dashboards, query builder, and research request tool. That information now lives in a standalone page on the Cradle-to-Career website, as well as linked in a handy one-pager for ease of use. And all of that lives on a new community conversation page, c2c.ca.gov/community conversations. We've included links to our 5-year timeline, as well as recordings for every conversation that we've held thus far, So this page is helpful for level setting the progress and status of the system going forward. So I just want to make sure that folks know about that, and we'll be updating that regularly following each event. In other news, we're proud to join efforts in the state to recruit and hire talent in California. As the work for California recruitment efforts in the state evolves, we're actively promoting new and upcoming job opportunities at Cradle-to-Career. We are in the middle of the hiring process for an IT manager, as well as the chief of strategic initiatives and partnerships. And we are very excited to announce that we just opened a position for C2C's general counsel and chief privacy officer. And very soon we will post jobs in nearly every vertical at Cradle-to-Career, including for Deputy Director of Digital Services, which will be under Ryan, Deputy Director of Legislative Affairs under myself, and a C2C budget analyst. For more information on the Work for California campaign, you can visit workforcalifornia.ca.gov. And as always, all open positions at C2C will be posted at c2c.ca.gov/careers. And speaking of budget, we are happy to report that the governor's recently proposed budget for 2023-24 includes $4.89 million in new additional funding for the Office of Cradle-to-Career Data, which includes 10 additional staff positions. We are grateful for the governor's support and look forward to the work ahead. And finally, I want to preview Cradle-to-Career's February 8th governing board meeting. This meeting will be held in person in Sacramento, but will be live streamed via Zoom and translated. We have a full agenda and anticipate an all-day session, but we welcome the public to join, and we will soon share information in a forthcoming communication as mandated by the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act. And that rounds out updates at Cradle-to-Career, so I'm going to hand it back to Ryan for more on our upcoming programmatic work.
Thank you, Shannon. I'm going to jump right in to a very broad topic, though I promise I won't stay broad. I will get concrete here in just a moment, but I wanted to connect what I'm going to be sharing about today, which is our user-centered design project and also our student experience audit results, back to a larger idea that you, our community, have shared with us and given us input about your interest. And that's in the idea of disaggregated data. This is really exciting to us because we agree that disaggregating data and information is one of the ways that we can promote equity in the way that we use data. And this shows us what we already suspected, which is our Cradle-to-Career community and members of the public are data savvy folks who know what they want out of their data. And this is great for us because we can learn from that and build our tools around that so that you can see yourselves in the products that we build and deliver for you. Disaggregated data is a technical term that I think can be applied in non-technical ways. And I'll do that by describing it as the way that we look at a large group of people or a large data set, if you want to think of it that way, and then try to find the stories of different people within that large group. We can understand then what happens in general with a larger group, but then also begin to see that within that group are different kinds of stories. And we see our work in part being about identifying those stories and using conversations like the one that we're having today to hear about stories we don't often hear about. Disaggregated data very commonly applies to data sets. So for example, looking at a data set of students and then looking at that data set in smaller groups by race or gender identity or socioeconomic status. But we also think that disaggregating data is a concept we can apply to non-quantifiable methods. And the two that I want to share with you today are our user-centered design process and also our project student experience audit, the first of which we completed in fall of last year and are beginning to finalize our written products around. Okay, so first one, you can go to the next slide, please, Shannon. User-centered design. So recall disaggregated data, big picture, we're looking at a large group of people or a large data set, and then we're trying to find the stories within. We talked about some of the ways that that can happen with quantifiable data, but we also believe that as part of our work user-centered design is a way that we can do that to look at the larger story of Californians, but then within that, the individual stories and stories around group identity that can sometimes go missing in the general narrative. And so we see our role as using data to service that. I'm going to get really concrete here because user-centered design is a foundational technique and philosophy that we use to come up with the principles that we design our data products around. We also use it to inform how we plan events like this and how we plan things like our community guidelines. It goes into so much of what we do. But I think the risk can be that it's talked about in the abstract, and I hope that I can try and make that a little bit more concrete for you today. So the project, user-centered design, and then the output of that. So when we are done with our user-centered design project is a set of design principles that drive how our data products are built, right? So if you think about all of the things in your life that are designed for a particular purpose, each of them were designed by designers to achieve certain goals. Maybe that's the cell phone that you choose to use, the clothes that you wear, the car that you drive. They can be designed around things that prioritize comfort or speed or cost. And so we aim to find the design principles that inform the stories of Californians and also all of the opportunities to promote equity. And so the discovery of that comes from conversations like the ones that we're having today. Let's go a little bit more concrete than that. Shannon, if you can go to the next slide. Okay. So what you have here is a list of activities and a description of the stages of user-centered design. This is a straight line, but I think in reality, user-centered design is more of a cycle. We sort of go back and forth between each of these stages. But the question here that I hope to try and answer and demystify is, how do you get from conversations like this to data products that reflect the stories of the people that you talk to in the first stage? And you'll see that each of these stages link to each other and inform the next. The very first one is the research stage, where we have conversations like the one that we're having today, and quite literally is all the different ways we can think of to listen to what the community have to say about how we use data and how we can use data to promote equity in California. From that, we yield a lot of information in the form of interview notes, notes from meetings, all kinds of different chat. We record the chat from the events like this and get them all into a text file and all in one place. And then we move on to stage 2, where we analyze all of that for broader themes. Those themes eventually become the principles that we use to design our products. And that's where we are right now. We've launched a user-centered design process. You might have been somebody who was interviewed for our upcoming teacher retention dashboard to inform the design of that. Or you might have been invited to join a focus group to talk about dashboards in general. All of that connects back to building up a good catalog of information from the community that we can then analyze and turn into design principles. Those design principles then drive how we build products, and those products, the initial versions of them, then go out to the public again for another round of input. So hopefully that demystifies what user-centered design is and shows you how we go from conversations like this into the actual building of the products. So I've been talking a lot. I want to stop here for a moment. And I want to give an opportunity for y'all to share some of your ideas with us. Before I do that, let me go to a question here from Paul. What's an example of a design principle? Yeah, so I'm going to give you a non-data example, and then I'll give you an example that could inform a data set like the one that we were trying to build. And keeping in mind that we are still discovering the design principles that are going to be the most relevant for our community. Like, we're not quite there yet, but I'll give you some examples. So if you've got a laptop computer, a design principle that informs the building of a particular laptop might be speed, for example. How do we get the fastest process possible? But it could also be designed around cost. How do we make this the most affordable possible? It could be designed around media consumption. How do we make a laptop that is going to give the best experience enjoying movies and music on it? So when it comes to data, data dashboards, one design principle could be, how do we build a dashboard that best represents diversity in California? Another might be, how do we build a dashboard that combines text and graphics to empower users to analyze complex information? There's all kinds of different ways that you can design. So something from Helen Roth, Dowden, most licensure boards don't require data on ethnicity. Since 20% of Californians are licensed by the state, are you doing anything to drive mandating this info upon licensure and renewal? Now it's asked but not required by some boards, even though other states require demographic data. So yeah, really good question. All of our data comes from state agencies that are collecting their data already. So we don't just, so important distinction between what we build and what other folks build. The P20W dataset, which is a dataset that we're building, is a linking of existing datasets. So we, as the Office of Cradle-to-Career Data, aren't collecting new data on our own. Our work is about linking data that's already being collected. Okay, so I'm going to give a chance for folks to share a little bit, because I'm curious to hear about the stories that you wished were represented in data products or in research. This is a way for us to hear about what's important to you. And so here's the question. Get your typing fingers ready to enter in the chat. As you think about what it's like for young people and families to transition from early childhood to grade school, and then from grade school to college, and then on to career, what are the stories, is the question, what are the stories that you feel go missing? Another way to ask that question, what are the stories, issues, or problems that are meaningful to you that you wish were available to researchers who use dashboards and other data reporting? All right, so reflect on stories that you have, begin typing. Shannon, do we have some music to play for about 30 seconds? And then when you are ready, give an example of a story or a data point or an area of research that you feel like were more present in the dashboards that you use on a day-to-day basis. These are stories that you wish were present in dashboards or data sets that you use in your daily work. What do you feel like is missing? Okay, it's a super big question. So I am going to give you a little bit of time. There you go. Carol says, telling stories about the pathways that individuals took to reach their career goal. Yep. Yeah, really interesting one, Carol, because the idea of disaggregating data, super big there. We think of that as maybe we think of that as a fairly simple thing, but as we hear more and more stories, we understand that that story is very different for other people. Thank you for that. Shireen says, how do other organizations and districts gather and use certain data, such as equity standards and other programs that have yielded results? 9 or not 0. I'm not sure about the 9 or not 0 part, but yeah, but I take your point. One of the things that we learn as we link data from across our agencies is that data is it's part of the complexity of that is different agencies collect data in a way that suits their goals, and so part of the the challenge that we are trying to meet in partnership with our agencies is how do we make that work together? Like that's a very real thing, you know, that we're working on. I'll read one more here. Educational data that included Common Core, curriculum, learning goals and performance, CTE clusters and performance linked to demand jobs and local MSA. One of the biggest values that we hope to bring to the work is connecting the outcomes of early childhood and grade school and relating that to outcomes in career. That's great for planning, but it's also great for research. And so we hope to meet all those. Thank you so much for sharing, everybody. Really appreciate it. All of this, as I mentioned earlier, gets captured in our repository for input, where we analyze it and use it to build a product. So as we continue on in the event, if you have more or something comes to you, please don't be afraid to put it into the chat. We are going to save it and reflect on these as part of our work. Okay, so I'm going to move on to one more thing here before I turn it back over to Shannon, which is the student experience audit. I'm going to do a really quick time check. Okay, cool. We have no time. Okay, so drawing a connection again to the big picture that we started off when just a few minutes ago, which is disaggregating data, something we know is very important to the community. Our student experience audit is another way that we disaggregate our understanding of the experiences of Californians, particularly as they go from school into college and then career. We do something called the annual student experience audit. We call it that because that's the way it's referenced in the statute that created our office, the Office of Cradle-to-Career Data. That's called the California Cradle-to-Career Data System Act. And it requires us to do something called a student experience audit once a year, where the goal of the student experience audit is to go out into the community and use research methods like interviews and surveys to identify the barriers that young people face as they plan for their life after high school. And we did our first one in the fall of last year and are now finalizing the write-up for that. And that's relevant here for two reasons. The first is we'll be releasing that reporting to the public soon, and we'll also be planning the next round of that, which we are aiming to complete before the end of this calendar year. And it is important also because it gives us an opportunity to identify the stories that often go missing about what it's like to transition from high school into secondary, post-secondary, and in particular, what the experiences can be like and how they can be different for applying for college and also financial aid. And so I'd like to share some key findings from that today. If we can go to the next slide, please, Shannon. Thank you. This was exciting in the sense that we pinpointed some particular experiences that we think are opportunities to be a part of improving. We know that applying for financial aid and for college, that experience varies across all of Californians. Not everybody experiences that the same way. And so we're very interested in identifying and bringing some nuance to that conversation. I'll describe it in three key findings, and then I'll turn it back over to Shannon so that we can talk about what we can do about this. The first is in the reporting, a lack of resources to support students with what's referred to in the reporting as special custodial circumstances. But let's make that a little bit more concrete. What that means are family experiences that make it harder to produce the required documentation to apply for financial aid. Some examples include if you are a student who was in foster care and maybe moved from home to home, if you are a student who is undocumented or have family members who are undocumented, the experience of producing the required paperwork for financial aid is very different from folks who are not in that situation. And that was a theme that came up over and over again as we talked to frontline educators who work with high schoolers. The second is a deep-seated fear to complete government-related forms and general mistrust of local and government institutions. That's always referred to in the reporting, but to talk about that a little bit more practically, there are some families who have had experiences in the past or current experiences that make it very difficult to move through processes that are presented by the government. In this case, this is about applying for financial aid or college. And the way that creates a problem in the process for college planning is that it can interrupt all of the steps that young people need to take to be able to move through it. And then finally, the last pain point is lack of embedded guidance of post-application requirements. Again, that's how it's referenced in the reporting, but let's make that concrete by saying that after you apply for financial aid, that's not the end of the process. There are a number of steps that one has to take to keep the financial aid coming if they're still eligible, for example, verifying income and processes like that. If there is not, and when there is not enough guidance for that, then the process can get interrupted again and not either slow down or not continue on to the next step. Students who come from low-income backgrounds are disproportionately identified for these verifications. And so without the necessary guidelines to be able to move through that smoothly, then there are some added risk there. So those are 3 findings. And in the next student experience audit that we do, we'll be looking more at that, also identifying other barriers that we want to begin reflecting on as part of our work, so that we can use that to inform how we build tools, planning tools for students who are planning for life after high school. So that's what I've got for the student experience audit. I'm going to take another moment here to now turn to you, our community, give you a little bit of time to reflect with some music from Shannon, and I'm going to give you a prompt. That prompt is, get your typing fingers ready. This is going to go into the chat. Maybe you've recently been through the college or financial application process yourself, or maybe you've helped someone through it. If so, what about these 3 findings that you see on the slides resonates with you? Or if you're still in processing that, what do you want to know more about to develop your opinion and stance on the issue of college planning for our young folks in California? I'll say that again to help you reflect, but feel free to begin typing if you know how you want to respond to this. Maybe you've recently been through the college or financial aid application process yourself or helped somebody through it. If so, what resonates with you? What do you want to know more, or what do you want to know more about to develop your opinion or stance on this issue? So, Shannon, if you could turn that music on to get the creative juices going, we'll give you a few seconds to begin typing, and I'll read some of these as they come through. But if you need to enter your information later, again, we will be saving all of this and analyzing it as a way to develop our design principles. Harold says number 2 resonates with me. Definitely a real concern, which unlimited student opportunities. Yeah, deep-seated. That's the pain point 2, deep-seated fear to complete governmental processes. Yep. Paul says, I can see how hard it would be to fill out FAFSA if parents don't share income info or make it difficult. Not sure what CTC can do about that, though. Yeah, this is a really good point, Paul. Is a lot of these problems are there. We'll talk about this sort of in a little bit and definitely more into the future. Is a lot of our work in this part is about coordinating efforts, because we know that the lives of students are surrounded by all kinds of different. There's a lot of people and agencies in the orbit of students that could potentially help, and it's certainly not all on one, group to be able to solve that problem. But we hope that we can at least raise some awareness about it and use our network to be able to coordinate some solutions. Shannon will talk a little bit more about what that could look like, and that will definitely be a topic that will come up over and over again. I'll read one more here. Amy says, assisting a child in a shared custody environment can also be challenging. Could there be ways for parents to confidentially enter income info for a student? This is exactly the type of input and ideas that we want, Amy. So please, thank you so much for sharing that. Okay. As with the other opportunity for sharing, I know that the way the brain works is sometimes stuff will come to you later. Please don't hesitate to share more in the chat as we come along. We'll save everything and analyze it for later. But I want to thank you for giving me a chance to share about these two big projects for us, foundational projects for building our P20W data set and related data products. That's our user-centered design project and also our student experience audit. And so we've talked a little bit about identifying the barriers, and we definitely do not want to leave it there. I'll turn it over. Oh, I have one more thing just to share here before I turn it back over to Shannon. If you could advance the next slide, Shannon, just to give people a preview of what's next. We'll be doing our next round of student experience audit. Will look a little bit different because the last one was done in October and November, and we'll have the full 12-month cycle to do this. So we hope to use some different research methods, talk to some different people, and gather more data. And we'll be building on that to grow what we know about this process for high schoolers. And so that's coming. Keep your eyes open for that. And we look forward to be able to share around this time next year with you about the findings there. So we don't want to leave it there. We're just identifying problems, though. We're all about the solutions and coordinating with others and hearing from our network. So I'm going to turn it over to Shannon to talk about what could come next in the way of supporting college planning.
Thanks, Ryan. So the findings and themes that just emerged from this fall's student experience audit illuminate the college going and application process is much harder than it needs to be. But it also highlighted that there are tools in existence right now, such as californiacolleges.edu, that can help students get to and through school, but they need to know about them. We heard in the audit that students who had special or unique circumstances that created challenges in accessing information to apply for college or for financial aid could have greatly benefited from a tool like californiacolleges.edu, which provides detailed and tailored guidance for students during the college application process. But not every student, not every family knows about the platform. So we've identified an opportunity for coordination and communication about the transition from high school to college and hope to engage key stakeholders this year in an effort to promote tools that ease the college planning process. Tailoring communications and messaging to key audiences, most importantly, students and their families, along with those who can aid in the promotion of these tools, such as college presidents, provosts, school districts, and counselors, will be a key goal of these efforts. So with that, I have a couple of questions for you. It's my turn to play the music for myself. How can we best get the word out about the resources available? Is it through direct communications to schools and districts, social media campaigns, the statewide advertisement campaign through radio and media? If you have thoughts, we encourage you to share them in the chat. And then a follow-up question to that, how can we target these types of students? Are there specific communities or folks that we should be reaching out to? And if so, how can we reach them? So two-pronged, how can we best get the word out about this? And who are the folks that we need to be targeting? Because we want to make sure that we're keeping this top of mind as we engage in these communications going forward. So two kind of big questions. I know that we have a little bit of time to talk about them. Stuff is already coming into the chat, and I am late to play the music, but I'm going to give folks a couple of minutes to give us an answer. So Helen Roth-Dowden, talk to School Counselors Association, Loretta Whitson. Lori Smith says statewide and regional campaign districts and community organizations. Linda said direct information to schools also include foster youth agencies and providers who serve homeless youth. Linda, I just want to flag that is definitely something that we have talked about in the student experience audit as well. There are some students who do not have supportive parents or the part of that process. And so we want to make sure that folks are getting unified messages through folks like foster parents, foster youth. So thank you for that. Marcy says, and it's gone, in addition to digital platforms, I believe that direct mailers in various languages to members of the neighborhoods or counties can be very effective. Steve says for our rural communities, information inserts and utility bills and school flyers sent out with students. Carol says, send media toolkits with actual visuals that can be posted around schools. Media kits also provide social media ideas for posting. Mirtha says, direct information to students via mobile phones or agencies that have the student's number. School counselors, college agencies, nonprofit and youth agencies. Thank you, Eileen. Also, toolkits to homes would be a great way to get access to parents. Viviana says, working with community organizations to directly target students that are least likely to have access to available tools. Anything non-electric for students, families who still don't have access to the internet. Thank you. These are great. I would not have thought about a utility bill. So thank you for that. I am definitely, as Ryan said, we keep track of everything in the chat. We want to make sure that we are keeping a running record of all of these things, and want to make sure that we are exploring all options going forward. So I appreciate that. Folks are still coming in, community organizations and churches. Thank you, Marcy. Buy-in from districts to incorporate tools and curriculum in some way during the school year, a resource fair. Absolutely. Lauren says, EITC outreach efforts may have useful lessons. Thank you so much, Lauren. Great. This is all super, super helpful as we engage in this process. Finally, I think Helen says, Peach Jar is a platform for school info used in many districts. Use this school-based tool. Great. I do not know what that is, but we will look into it. These are all awesome ideas, and I appreciate everybody's feedback today because there is a lot of good stuff in here that we're going to mine. And so definitely we'll take this all into consideration. So thank you for your feedback. So now I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Have been talking about and linking to the Cradle-to-Career website all throughout this meeting. But it would not be lost on me if I said that there's something to be desired in the current website, not only visually, but functionally. And so the revamped website is a huge priority for the data system for this year. The website will be one of the main, if not only ways users will interact and engage with the data system. So we need to get this right. The new Cradle-to-Career website should engage visitors by presenting visuals that are attractive, intuitive navigation, and concise messaging. The new site should also increase functionality and be easy to use. The design should be modern and innovative and showcase information and data relative to stakeholders. So I'm very excited to announce that we've just completed the RFO process for a website developer and hope to begin the site redesign process soon, launching late summer and early fall. As noted, we are in the very, very, very beginning stages of the website redesign, but as we build the site and before the launch, we will conduct user acceptance testing with end users or folks like you who are most likely to use and engage the site. We will be seeking volunteers who can help us with testing in the coming months. So make sure to follow us on social media and sign up for the Cradle-to-Career newsletter so that we can keep you on the loop. We'll be promoting this as well during our community conversations, but that's just the way that we will be regularly communicating with folks as we hope to get people who can help us with that. I just wanted to make a pitch there. And before I go, let me see if there's something in the chat. Thank you, Lauren. All right. The website redesign will be a huge component of our work, but we're still very much in the startup mode at Cradle-to-Career by way of brand development. If you join previous conversations, you know Cradle-to-Career, the GRIP brand is top of mind, and we collaborated recently on the official C2C logo and the C2C name itself. You provided concrete and helpful feedback and ideas, noting images and messaging that did not resonate with you or reflect the message of the data system, as well as what you'd like to see from Cradle-to-Career. We've taken that feedback into consideration and aim to roll out the official branding in coordination with a website relaunch. And in the parallel process, Cradle-to-Career will convene a strategic planning ad hoc committee made up of governing board members in the coming months who will work to streamline and harmonize C2C's vision and mission. So it truly reflects what we're doing here every day. Finally, I just want to flag that Cradle-to-Career has been developing our own core values, and we will officially roll this out, the C2C vision, mission, and values as part of the brand launch. We will soon initiate an RFO for design that will finalize key elements of the brand, including the color palette, choices, all the logos, and creating cool, innovative collateral going forward, such as useful one-pagers, fact sheets, digital ads, and media as we work to promote the data system. So stay tuned for that. We will be coming back to you again, probably for user testing to make sure that the messages and the visuals that we are creating also resonate with you, because you are our power users at this point, the folks who know us best. And so we want to make sure that you help us as we just do this work. So I want to make a pitch again for that. And then finally, in the spirit of transparency, this slide shows the near final options for the C2C logo. You probably know them well because we have now asked you in a community conversation. We've also reached out to our advisory and governing boards about this and sent out a survey to subscribers. So I just thank you for your time and energy as we work to finalize these pieces. We gauged thoughts on the Cradle-to-Career name and tagline in an online survey as well. And want to make sure that it reflects us. And so I thank you for bearing with us. It is not lost on me. I think in our initial conversation, we were concerned that, data and the system would not resonate with folks, but nearly 80% of respondents said that you like the words data and system when thinking about C2C. So I'm pleased to announce that we are once again confirming that the official name for California's Cradle-to-Career data system is that, with the tagline connecting data and insights to advance more equitable futures. So thank you for your patience. We really, really appreciate, because we want to make sure that we're doing this all right, that it resonates with you. And so sometimes it takes a little longer to get to the end spot, but we are just grateful for your thoughts and feedback. And so that's all I have for revamp and relaunch updates right now. So I'll turn it back to Ryan for some closing thoughts.
Thanks, Shannon. My biggest closing thought is thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I'm looking through the chat here, and it's just so exciting and feels so empowering to know that y'all feel comfortable sharing your experiences with some of the topics we're trying to cover today. And I want to thank you for taking your lunch hour to join us, walking through the story with me and Shannon. So to recap, we gave some updates on the things that we have been working on, foundationals or projects that will support the building of our P20W data set, like our easy to read data points by provider list. We talked about how our team is growing and we have job postings available and more to come, which is very exciting. We shared the launch of our user-centered design project, which helps us to connect with your experiences and stories, and crucially, create a process that empowers us to use those to inform how we build our data products. We shared the results of our first student experience audit, which is one of a few ways that we engage the community to learn about the barriers for young people as they plan for college. And finally, we are sharing some of the big questions that we are asking about how we can improve or be a part of a network that is improving that experience for young people. This is a quote that I like by author Brene Brown, and the quote is, "Maybe stories are data with a soul." And it's a reminder to us that while we build the most inclusive data set that we can possibly imagine, that we stay focused on the people that the data represents. And most important data of all from the data set is the lessons that we can find in their stories. And so I hope that that is something that resonates with you. This is only just the beginning for us, and we're so grateful that you're along for the ride with us, and hope to see you at the next one. We are always looking to improve how we do this and to understand our community. We are so grateful that there's so many people that are joining us in this event and in others, that it makes us more and more curious and committed to understanding who our community actually are. Can you please help us understand that by filling out this very quick survey? Shannon just dropped a link in the chat. Shannon assured me that it's a very short survey, it won't take long to fill out. But it really does help us as we look through all of the information, like what you shared with us in the chat, and also our user-centered design project, where we can understand better who it is that we are trying to serve and provide the best public service that we can related to the data set. So that link is in the chat. You can fill that out now. We would greatly appreciate it. And finally, once again, I don't think I can say it enough on behalf of Office of Cradle-to-Career Data. Thank you for joining us and for sharing with us, challenging us with your ideas, and giving us important stories so that we can hold ourselves accountable to building this data set in a way that serves you. So thank you so much. We're going to turn the music on and hang out here for a little while as we wave goodbye. And we hope to see you at the next event. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.